Hi, Kim here at An Oasis of Books. Today I want to share with you a little experiment I'm doing. Wasn't sure how it would go, that's how experiments are, but actually, surprisingly, I'm really enjoying it. I'm calling it my Crazy Cozy Challenge. This is the day that most of my children have predicted that my first grandchild will be born on, but my daughter is hanging on, and she's due in a couple of days, but we'll see if she's going to go late or not. She's in Hawaii, and I get to go visit her and the new baby sometime in September, but for now, I'm here in Northern California where it is definitely still summer, but I'm pretending, for today anyway, that it's fall. So I've got my fall colors on. I'm even wearing some fall earrings. Can you see these little acorns? I got these at a craft fair. I love buying artisan crafts whenever I go to different festivals and fairs. I think this actually was the craft fair portion of a steampunk festival I was at. And here is my coffee cup of the day. I think that it's very apropos. The other side has a cat, of course. But now let's get into this challenge I've made for myself out of the blue. So it's not really out of the blue. Back in January, I did a video about my reading plans for the year, and I had lots of little different things I want to incorporate into my reading and into this channel, like bringing in even more nature, stuff like that. But I also had 4 specific projects I wanted to do this year. Those projects have been somewhat, well, not put on hold, well, kind of put on hold, delayed, we'll say, slowed down, because I went through a major reading slump, which almost never happens to me, but it did this year for a variety of reasons. I'm out of that reading slump now, though, reading lots of great books in all sorts of genres, the way I like to do. But with cozy mysteries being one of my favorite books to read, I was a little disappointed that I hadn't, other than Homicide in hardcover back in January, I hadn't proceeded with my project for rereading my favorite series. So I thought, what could I do? What could I do? And then about 10 days ago, this idea came to me. How about you take 6 cozy mysteries and you read them all at the same time? I'm like, what? Why would you think you could do that? It'd be so confusing. But it just seemed like it might be fun. And after all, people watch lots of shows at the same time and don't seem to have a problem, keeping track of what's going on in each one. And I typically do read, 7, 8, 9 books at the same time. They're just usually different genres. So I wasn't sure, if I read 6 cozy mysteries, how that would go. Would I lose track and think certain clues from certain mysteries went in other mysteries, and would it all just jumble in my brain? Well, there was only one way to find out. So back on about August 9th or 10th, I started 6 cozy mysteries at the same time. And now I'm about 1/3 to 1/2 of the way through all 6 of these books, and I'm reporting mid-challenge that I think it's going really well. I actually am liking this. So what I have done is I have decided to take 3 of my old favorite series, the 3 that I had not yet read in, because remember, I already read this one entirely from the Bibliophile mystery series. So I will get back to this, but I took the other 3 and then I added 3 other mystery series. And these are ones that I've heard good things about from people I really like, other booktubers who've read them. And so they've been sitting on my shelves collecting, one book after the other, just waiting for me to have a chance to read them. Well, I'm not waiting for the chance anymore. I'm doing it now. So now I'm just going to talk you through what I think of these books so far and what I think of this crazy idea to read 6 of them at the same time. So the first old favorite cozy mystery series that I'm rereading is Jill Churchill's Grace and Favor Mysteries. Now, the first one came out in 1999, and it's entitled Anything Goes. This series features Lily and Robert Brewster, sister and brother, who were quite rich. quite privileged, and that all changed very suddenly, very drastically when the stock market crashed in 1929 and the Great Depression here in the US began. So this series picks up 2 years later in 1931, and we see how they've been just barely surviving, but they are managing together to scrape by. And then something unexpected happens. Their great uncle Horatio, who they haven't seen since they were very young children, dies and leaves them his little cottage, which turns out to be a big mansion. So the series is at first them learning to adjust to this small town life rather than big city life, and kind of figure out how they fit in here. They can't leave. They have to stay in the mansion for 10 years to actually own it. So they have to live in this out in the middle of nowhere place where they know no one. The other thing that happens, of course, is murder, because, well, you have to have one of those at least for a cozy mystery. They discover that their Uncle Horatio, rather than dying by accident in a shipwreck, was actually murdered on that ship. And there were a lot of other people on the ship with them when it happened, so they're determined to find out who did it. And why are they so determined? Well, they're considered top suspects, considering they inherited the mansion and all his wealth. So they start making some friends very slowly in the community. They start poking around, and things escalate when another dead body pops up. Now, what I remember from reading this book eons ago was that the tone of it was so funny. Also, I didn't recall, and I still don't, reading any other sister-brother pairs in any cozy mystery series. So I was very curious if I was going to find these books to still be just as funny to me, because, our sense of humor, like everything else, changes over time. But I have to say, yes, just as funny this time around. The humor in here is interesting because Jill Churchill does a great job of bringing the context of the Great Depression and what it was like for different people, whether the rich people come down or the people who were already low income and how they're getting by. And there's a lot of character development. As I'm reading this book, I'm recalling that now, that Lily in the beginning, well, Robert too in a different way, they definitely have some leftover, some vestigial privileged attitudes, let's say. But as they meet the common folk around them in this small town, you do start seeing their attitudes change. But still, the humor is the top selling point of this series, and I'm really enjoying it again. Something else I want to mention is that this series only has 5 books in it, so you can actually complete it in a reasonable amount of time. Now it's time for me to share with you one of my absolute top favorite cozy mysteries, and it is the Amelia Peabody series by Elizabeth Peters. Now, Elizabeth Peters was actually an Egyptologist, and her real name, Barbara Mertz. But as Elizabeth Peters, she wrote this 20-book series, and it was so beloved that after she died, the 20th book, which she had already plotted out and partially completed, was finished by her close friend and cozy mystery author Joan Hess, along with the help of another Egyptologist. So, the Painted Queen came out, I think, 4 years after she died. Barbara Mertz, Elizabeth Peters, died in 2013. The 20th book, The Painted Queen, came out in 2017. And I'll let you in on a secret. I have not read the 20th book. I've read the 19 preceding books, but I've been a little scared to read the 20th because I love this series so much. I'm, I guess, a little bit nervous to see if Joan Hess did a good job. I'm sure she did, but I just wanted to wrap up and end fittingly to this series. Anyway, Elizabeth Peters' Amelia Peabody series was probably the very first historical cozy mystery series I read, and one of the top 3 first cozy mystery series I read. I didn't read it, however, unlike all the other ones, when it came out, because it actually came out, the first book here, Crocodile on the Sandbank in 1975. And I was not reading Cozy Mysteries in 1975. Well, I was reading Nancy Drew. Does that count? This series starts in 1884, 1885, and it features Amelia, Peabody, and her companion, whom she meets in the very first chapter, Evelyn. And then two others, Emerson and his brother, Walter, whom they meet very quickly in the first few chapters. And throughout this series, we see these characters develop and remain close in different ways. And eventually the next generation comes along too. And this series, it is just so close to my heart because as a child, I loved archaeology. That was one of my dream careers, to be an archaeologist, a writer or an archaeologist. Those were the top two. And well, Amelia Peabody is like the embodiment of my dreams. Anyway, I found in rereading this one the same joy that I found the first time around. Actually, this is probably the third time I've read this, so the same joy I found the first two times around. And I just highly recommend it to everyone. The humor in this, the banter between Amelia and Emerson is just top notch. I mean, obviously sense of humor is subjective, so see if it, works for you, but it definitely works for me. And the history is all there. Lots and lots of Egyptian history and British history. And the perspective of Barbara Mertz as an Egyptologist, she brings it in on, she doesn't bring in a modern attitude, but she does bring in the perspective of why were we taking all of this stuff away from Egypt, and what were the ramifications, and what were the problems with leaving it there. And so that stuff is there on the edges, but it is mostly 99% centered on these characters. And boy, does she do a great job with them. The mysteries are also fantastic. So a big success in rereading this series, and I'm having to keep myself from going off and just finishing this without giving the others their fair share of time. Now here I have a change to announce. The third old favorite cozy mystery series I wanted to reread as part of this project, I said in January was going to be Winnie Archer's Bread Shop Mystery Series. But after I thought about it, I realized, wait a minute, that is not an old favorite series. So it is part of this challenge, and I'll talk about it in a minute, but I replaced it with one of my true old favorite cozy mystery series from long ago, and that is Cleo Coyle's CoffeeHouse Mystery Series. This is the first one in that series. On What Grounds? It was published in 2003. Now, the CoffeeHouse Mystery Series features Claire. She is the manager of the Village Blend, and this is a coffee shop that was started in the heart of New York City, actually in Greenwich Village, back in 1895, and it still is the place where creatives, artists, writers, musicians love to go to have artisanal coffee. Is that the right word for it? Gourmet coffee, fancy coffee, good coffee. I only wish I could go to the Village Blend because it sounds wonderful. The ambiance that Coyle manages to put into her books, all to do with coffee and with New York City, which I've only been to once, but I went to this area and, she just captures it so well. I loved this series the first time I read it, and it was unlike any of the other cozy mystery series I was reading then or even have read since for the most part. Lately, in the last couple of years, I've seen more that are bringing in diversity, but she did it first, and she did it so well. Lots of diverse characters, and diverse in every way you can imagine. And yet, the warm-hearted friendships and the mystery plot, the suspense, it's all there. These are very suspenseful mysteries. They're not just light and fluffy, but they're not, graphic in any way. They are definitely cozy. And I am really enjoying this. And as I read them, I'm enjoying a lot of coffee right alongside. Now, Cleo Coyle has a few other popular series now too, but this remains probably her most popular. It's up to 21 books now and still going strong. 21 is No Roast for the Weary. I encourage you, if you haven't tried them yet, get your hands on What Grounds and give it a go because, well, it's just fantastic. The character development that occurs throughout the series is something else I really enjoy because some series, the characters seem to never age or change, and, well, I want them to. Also, her books include recipes and coffee making tips, which I can always use. So now let's move on to the 3 cozy mystery series that I've chosen to do in conjunction with my old favorites. So here is the Bread Shop Mystery Series by Winnie Archer. Now this series has 8 books in it. I think it's done because the last one was published in 2022, but I'm not sure. So I mentioned a minute ago that originally this was in my reread project for my old favorites, but that upon reflection I realized, wait a minute, this wasn't one of my old favorites. This was a series I read the first book in, and based on what everyone was saying, I thought I was going to love the whole series, and somehow my mind, transposed it and I put it in that project. So I took it out, but I'm reading it and I started over again because I wanted to give it a fair shake. All 6 of these books in this crazy cozy challenge are first books in series. So Kneaded to Death, published in 2017. Okay, so even though I haven't read this whole series, I have read the first book, and the first time I read it, I loved it. That's what I said in January when I talked about it. And I have to believe myself. And when I went back and looked at what I'd written about it, yeah, I loved it. So I've been really surprised as I am rereading this that although I'm liking it, I'm not loving it. And I tried to break that down, and it's just some little things. One kind of major thing. So the little things are that the crime, the murder, was kind of confusing to me because it was set in conjunction with another incident happening at almost the exact same time, and I'm sure they're tied together, but I don't know, it just felt a little bit messy to me, which maybe it's supposed to, because I'm one of those people that after I've read a book and a few years go by, most of the time I don't remember the details, and I don't remember the details from this. So speaking of details, that is interesting because although I did remember that Ivy, the main character in this book, is a photographer, I didn't remember how many photography and camera details that the author puts in here. And this time I'm like noticing them everywhere. Lots and lots of camera details. And I think I'm overreacting. I'm not really sure why I'm picking up on those this time when I didn't last time, but they kind of are taking me out of the story a little bit. All right, what was the other detail? Oh yes, it's that the bread shop owner, who is going to be the sort of mentor and motherly figure in Ivy's life, she's very likable in some ways, but she's said and done a couple of things where I'm like, oh, that's not very nice of you. And that kind of surprised me because in my memory, she had been extremely nice, very almost grandmotherly, and that's not the vibe I'm getting this time. So I have to wonder, what kind of mood was I in the first time I read it as opposed to now? Or is it because I'm reading all 6 of these cozies at once and I'm seeing all these many characters side by side that she's not coming across as likable as some of the others? I don't know. Maybe by the end of the book I'll have changed my mind about her. But the main difference I'm finding this time, and the reason I think I'm not loving it this time, is because there is a sub-theme in here of grief. So the main character lost her mother sort of recently in a hit-and-run accident. And Ivy is still really clearly going through it. She's still in major recovery mode. She has not dealt with things yet. And it comes up a lot, like the author is bringing it up all the time. So kind of brings the mood down of the book. It's definitely not as lighthearted as other cozy mysteries are. But right now, it's just about her going through the stages of grief. That's coming up a lot, and we're hearing her thoughts about that a lot. Now, why didn't that bother me the last time? I can think of two reasons. One is that my own mother's death in 2010 would have been more recent when I read this in 2017. So maybe I identified with the character and was nodding along and saying, yes, you can get through this, you know. And now that I am 8 years farther down the road, it feels a little bit too much, like it's intruding too much on the mystery to me. But the other reason I might have taken it differently is I may have skimmed over those elements when I read it the first time because I didn't want to read about grief. And if so, well, then, you know, I wouldn't have had that intruding on the mystery, and I probably would have seen the whole thing in a completely different light. So that could have been, I don't know. But I do love the setting of the bread shop and all the talk about the bread. It's very well done. And there are some sub characters in here that I'm really enjoying. So, you know, I'm going to keep going with this series no matter how the first one ends for me, because I have faith that it's going to get better and that Ivy will work her way through that grief and it won't be such a part of it. But I did want to bring it up in case that either puts you off or appeals to you about that theme in the book. The second new series that I'm so excited to share with you because it's so much fun and so different than anything I've read in Cozy Mysteries before. It is the Costume Shop Mystery Series by Diane Valere. And this is A Disguise to Die For. Now, this series only has 3 books in it. Sadly, it didn't go farther than that. Not sure why, because I am loving this. So it's set in Nevada at a costume shop, of course. And the main character, Margot, actually grew up working in this costume shop with her father, who owns it. Her mother's been gone since she was a baby, and so her father raised her alone. When she, you know, graduated high school, her dad said, you need to get out there and experience some life. You can't just stick around here at the costume shop forever. How do you know it's really what you want to do with your life? You haven't experienced anything else. So she goes off to Vegas and does a variety of odd jobs, and the latest being a magician's assistant. But her father has it was either a heart attack or a stroke, and so she comes back to help him recover, which he pretty much has done now. And he's actually taken off on a jaunt with his friend to go do one of the things he likes to do, which is check out UFO sites as well as look for costumes. While he's gone, of course, Margot is in charge of the costume shop. She has a mentor, a motherly figure who's been there for her all her life, Ebony, who is a party planner. And the murder that happens pretty quickly in the book implicates Ebony. And so Ebony takes off, and Margot, of course, has to try to clear her name. Now, the fun thing about Margot that stands out is that she dresses, and apparently always has from a child on, in a different costume every day. And that is just so fun to see. Not just the costumes, which are great to hear about, but also the attitude. You know, she's so independent. She's so creative. She's so sure of herself and not worried about what other people think. Just a very interesting character, and I'm really enjoying reading this short, sadly, series. Last, but definitely not least, this is the other new Cozy Mystery series that I have included in this crazy cozy challenge of reading 6 Cozy Mysteries at the same exact time. It is the Cheese Shop series by Karina Moss. Now, this series was only started in 2022. This is the first book, Cheddaroff Dead. And just in April of this year, 2025, she's published book number 6, which is Bait and Swiss. I really love the punny titles that these cozy mystery writers come up with. And just look at this cover. Is this not gorgeous? All of Karina Moss's Cheese Shop mystery covers are this lovely. So the Cheese Shop mystery series is set in Northern California, in the Sonoma Valley, the wine country of the Bay Area. And it is beautiful there. I go there pretty frequently, several times a year, just to visit. And yeah, it is described so well by Karina Moss in here. I have to think that she either lives nearby or visits frequently herself. And this book sort of got off to a slow-ish start, but I am really enjoying it now that I'm into it. The main character is Willa. She is the cheesemonger of the shop. And the murder victim is an unlikable food critic. He gets murdered pretty quickly in this series. And Willa, of course, needs to solve this crime because she is considered, well, one of the main suspects because the murder weapon was one of her cheese knives. So again, this is, in my opinion, a somewhat, so far anyway, slower paced book. And I actually am now really enjoying that, like that aspect of it. I'm really relaxing into it. She does a lot of descriptions of not just the surrounding area, but you know, the immediate location of where Willa is at any time. And she does it really well. So you feel like you're right there. The characters are starting to really develop already. I'm liking that. And the cheese talk. Okay, that has to be the main selling point of this series. While I am somewhat dairy intolerant, I do make exceptions for cheese occasionally, despite the pain involved, because I love cheese. However, I admit I grew up with a very, very limited relationship with cheese. We only ever had medium cheddar. Yep. I have branched out a bit since then, but this book alone, I can't imagine the rest of the series, it's already making me want to go experiment. For instance, one cheese I tried and hated was Swiss cheese, but just a couple of sentences by Karina Moss in here about a specific type of Swiss makes me want to go out and buy it today and try it. Listen to this. This was going to require something more than the meditation of aligning cheese wedges. So I surveyed the refrigerated case. I was in need of a thick slice of Challerhocker, a Swiss unlike any other. The deep flavors of peanuts and buttery caramel was such a satisfying bite, only heightened by a lingering salty finish. I want that now. Seriously, despite what I thought was a slow start, I am loving this book and I can't wait to read all the others in the series. Okay, so what am I learning about reading 6 cozy mysteries at the same time? Is it working? Is it chaos? It is crazy. It is chaotic. It is slightly confusing, but really only at the beginning. Now that I'm really getting into them, well, I'm not confused anymore. I don't have a problem flipping from one to the other. My only challenge right now is that once in a while, I'm in one of them and I want to keep going. Normally I don't, because what I've been doing is setting a timer for 12 and a half minutes. I don't know where I came up with that random number, very arbitrary, but I set that timer and I read for 12 and a half minutes. And when the timer goes off, to be honest, what I usually do is hit the restart button and read for another 12 and a half minutes before I make myself switch to another one. But what I am learning so far with doing this is it is much easier for me to compare book to book in certain ways. For instance, I can tell some of these authors, because I'm reading them one after the other, have a completely different tone than each other. One will be extremely humorous and bantering. Another will be very serious and emotional. And another will just be lighthearted, fun, but with a more of an emphasis on the theme of the books. Then again, the pacing. I think probably that is the thing I'm noticing the most. Because when you're reading books side by side, you know, and they're in the same genre, they're covering the same ground, you know, they have to establish the characters, they have to present the murder, they have to give you the clues, etc. Well, you can't help but notice the difference in pacing. So some of these books start off with a bang, literally, and they just, you know, they hit the ground running and it's action, action, action. Others take a much more mellow approach, much slower start. And so I'm not necessarily saying the slower start is a bad thing. If you can hang through that, if they make it interesting, if that's just their style and they're a more descriptive writer, you know, it's just a lot more obvious when you're reading side by side. I might not have picked up on that if I was reading it all by itself. And the last thing that I think was very easy to compare because I'm reading these at the same time, side by side, is the character development. Both the, introduction of the character, how they're presented, how well you get to know them and how quickly, and the development of bringing in sub-characters, side characters, minor characters. How is that done? Do we get to know anything about them? And it's so interesting to see how the authors all handle that so differently. And I'm not saying there's any one right way, of course, but obviously as a reader, you're going to have ways that you prefer, and they're much more obvious when you're reading several books at once. I will say also, though, it's good to see that even though these books are all very different, I'm finding I can enjoy them all. So, I don't need to get in a rut and think, oh, well, I only like historicals, or I only like the really funny cozies. I think that there's a place for each of them. And as I definitely discovered with the Bread Shop Mystery series, I do believe that your mood at the time of reading very much affects your perception of it in so many ways, and the way you read it. Again, perhaps skimming over parts of it that at another time you might not do that at all. So what do I think about my experiment, my cozy crazy experiment, reading all these cozies at the same time? I think surprisingly it's gone really well. I've had a lot of fun with it, and I'm sure I'm going to be done with these within a week. And then in September, I'll let you know which ones were the best. Which was the best of the old, which was the best of the new, which was the best overall. I have my suspicions already, but we shall see. So tell me, have you ever read several of the same genre book at the same time? Or are you someone that, you only read one book at a time and that's that? Or I think a lot of people say they read one fiction and one nonfiction at the same time, but they can't handle more than that. I think I used to do that, but in the last couple of years, I've started reading several books, like I said before, I think 7, 8 at the same time. And that's so that I have options, so that depending on what I feel like at any given moment, I can grab that book. And that, I think, prepped me for this experiment. This was still a little more intense since they're all the same genre, but I'm having a lot of fun with it. And yeah, it's made reading this month extra special. I hope your reading this month of August has been special too. Let me know in the comments. Do you read several books at the same time? What's your opinion of that? Maybe you should give it a try if you don't. And do you have a favorite cozy mystery series? Let me know that in the comments below too, because if I haven't read it yet, I definitely want to give it a try. So thank you for joining me for today's video. And until next time, I'm wishing you some very, very happy reading.